Hey everybody, welcome to the THC Foodie, where we discuss the business side of cannabis and infused edibles. And we have Warren Bobrow, and he is the author of Cannabis Cocktails, Mocktails Tonics, the art of spirited drinks and buzzworthy libations. And he is so amazing because he is not just putting cannabis into drinks, and he is totally focused on preserving the flavor and really creating these beautiful craft drinks. So he's going to kind of walk us through today how he infuses cannabis into his cocktails.
Well, this is a great honor for me, and the process that I'm using is so simple because it involves technology, and it's something that we haven't had a whole lot of in this industry until just recently. I know that there are a lot of explanations of why we infuse and how we infuse, but really the crux of everything that we do to make it authentic is we have to decarb. And I came upon the idea of decarbing probably about 20 years ago when someone showed me, I don't know, maybe it was at a Grateful Dead show. I've seen about 300 Grateful Dead shows, so you never know what comes along, what type of information comes along the way. But I realized that you can't just put a bunch of weed in a bottle of liquor and hope that something's going to happen with it. And I'm using medical grade cannabis. I have a legitimate medical reason for using it. So I like to say the only thing I inherited from my late father was his glaucoma. So it's completely under control with the use of medical cannabis, and I'm the luckiest man in the world that preserves my seeing. But first off, I wanted to talk about decarbing. And decarbing is so important because it removes the acid A from THC. And what that does is it gives you the feeling that we all like, that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. Neither indica in the couch nor sativa. But each one has its own individual flavors. It has their own terpenes meaning aromas. And it preserves it with this process. So, there's a lot of disinformation out there on the marketplace and on the internet, on the interwebs, and everyone and their uncle has a different method of decarbing, and quite frankly, they're all problematic. There is no perfect method that you read on the web other than the one that I stumbled upon. And the one that I stumbled upon is using a piece of equipment called the Ardent Lift. And the Ardent Lift is a self-contained decarboxylizer. And it's about 8 inches tall. There it is. It plugs in to the wall. It has a container on the inside of it, which is made of aluminum. It's kind of like what I would say almost like a steam-jacketed kettle for soups and stocks. But in this case, you put your cannabis inside this little container. You close the silicone lid. You put the container inside this microprocessor controlled heater, close it up, and hit the on button, and an hour and 15 minutes later you have 100% bioavailability. There are no more burnt up batches. There's no more undercarb batches. It is perfect every time. It makes me look like a professional. I don't have to struggle anymore. I was using a toaster oven. It was varying in temperature as much as 20 degrees. I was using my regular gas oven. It was almost 40 degrees. I was getting I wasn't able to get my job done, and people weren't having a great time with my experience. They were saying the cocktails taste great, but they weren't feeling anything. Well, you have to decarb to feel anything. That's why when an individual would take, you would take like a bottle of liquor and you stuff a whole bunch of cannabis into it, and 6 months later you have this gloppy, chlorophyll-filled mess. That is not how I do it. I take the freshly decarbed cannabis and I put it inside this little creation right here. This is called an ISI, or an ISI. And what the ISI does is it micro-encapsulates the molecule of THC from my alcohol here, the THC into the alcohol by using pressure. And in this case, we use nitrous oxide. Makes it slightly fizzy, but the fizziness drops off, and it is unbelievable. I was on Heritage Radio 2 days ago, and I did it live in the studio, and everyone had a great time. So it really is spectacular. It works so perfectly. It takes 2 of the ISI nitrous oxide enhancements, and then it forces it in. I could show you how to do it right now if you like. I have a batch all set up for us.
That would be great.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm going to show you how easy it is to, so we've taken the cannabis out, supposedly we've taken the cannabis out of the decarboxylator after an hour. We're going to put it into the ISI. For all intents and purposes, I have this done right here. So I'm going to put the rum, it's rum agricole from Martinique, into my ISI. I don't know if you can see me doing that. And put it up to just about the line. And then I'm going to close it up. So close it up. I mean, this is like science class here. And then you open up the little container that you're going to put the nitrous oxide cartridge in. By the way, I did not invent this process. This process was invented by a young guy named Dave Arnold, who is at the International Culinary Center in New York City, but he was using it to infuse cilantro into vodka. So this is a little bit different. So here we go. So right now, it sends its nitrous in here, and I can hear it kind of bubbling and fizzing, and it's forcing the THC into the alcohol, and it's really beautiful. I can hear it doing its thing. So you want to let it rest for a couple of seconds and then force the nitrous out. And what this is doing is literally forcing the THC with this motion. And by the way, in my book, Cannabis Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics, I tested every single one of the recipes on myself. I'm still standing. So a certain national magazine took offense at my technique, and they said that I was bad and dangerous.
Oh, wow.
I may well be bad and dangerous, but it's not for a magazine to tell every person who reads it that I am. So here's the second ISI charge, and I'm charging it right now. You hear it doing its thing. Give it a shake. So I can hear it doing its fizzing. It's forcing the THC into the alcohol molecule. I'm going to empty it out of the gas. Very easy, easy, easy. Okay, almost there. So now it's empty. Now I'm going to open this up. Okay, so it's micro-encapsulated. I've got a glass here. So I'm going to filter it out using a sieve. Let me lift it up while I'm doing that. And there we are. So it's this liquor, which is beautiful rum agricole from Martinique, is now filled. I don't know if you can see, but it's absolutely charged with the cannabis. It's in there. I can see it foaming and doing its thing.
Can you show us what's in the strainer? Can you show us?
Very, very little. I mean, there's very, very little in here primarily because most of it's at the bottom of the container, and it's foaming up. I don't want it all over my keyboard. But there's just a little bit left in the strainer. If you want to get a clearer spirit, you could probably put it through a coffee filter. It's up to you. I love using this color because it works well with dark spirits. Rum agricole, to a rule, is clear. So this is the natural color from the cannabis. The scent, the aroma is really perfumed. I use OG Kush, and this is really, really beautiful. What I smell is hints of citrus and pine. If you could possibly imagine parking your car underneath a pine tree and the sap would fall on your windshield. If you were to lick it, that's what it would smell like. So it has the citrus, it has a little bit of cedar, some pine, some crushed minerals, and it keeps revealing itself a little bit deeper. I'm getting sort of like a candied popcorn kind of note, and so like caramel corn, and it's really kind of nice. So what I would probably do with something like this is I would take a simple syrup like this one from a company called Fruitations in beautiful Massachusetts, and it's a cranberry simple syrup. And then I also have some seltzer water. So being that I'm just going to stand up for 1 second and get my little shaker tin, and I'll be right back. Just moving over to this point right here. Okay, so I've got a little shaker tin, and I'm going to measure out a portion of the cannabis infused rum agricole. And why I like using rum agricole is because it's not made from molasses. It's made from freshly crushed sugar cane. So it's quite gourmet, and it's not inexpensive either. So nothing I use is cheap, and I don't recommend using anything cheap. So I'm going to put about an ounce and a half of the cannabis infused rum into a little shaker thing. And I'm just going to put a couple drops of the beautiful Fruitation simple syrup in, simple syrup of cranberries. Just give it a little stir around because it doesn't need to be shaken hard or anything. You just want to combine the flavors very gently. And then I'm going to top with some seltzer water. In this case, it's got a little bit of grapefruit, so it kind of picks up from the OG Kush.
When would you normally have this cocktail? Like before dinner, after dinner, all day? What?
That's a very good question. And the measurement of the THC is probably important to know that it runs about 100 milligrams per cocktail. So this is not for a beginner. These cocktails are meant for people who are probably well experienced. I hear about micro applications of cannabis. It doesn't do anything for me. I need 50 milligrams to get started. So 100 is probably a good strong drink for someone who wants to medicate all during the day. You don't have to drink all of it at once, but being that it is a cocktail, it's nice to be in a social setting and have a drink in your hand. You could be taking your medicine in a non-offensive style. I'm very, very much about not having people know my business. And when I'm out in the street and you're smoking a joint, everyone knows your business. Or in New Jersey here, they look at it as a crime, and you can run into a whole lot of trouble. Fortunately, I have a cannabis card, and I'm able to use it without fear of reprisal. But I will tell you that you don't want to be smoking around in New Jersey or in New York City or any place for that matter that it's illegal. It's just not condoned. So my cocktails are condoned. There's no way you can tell that there's anything going on in here because it's just a delicious little craft cocktail that just happens to be infused with cannabis. So it is unchilled. Normally I would have ice. What has happened today or yesterday is I got a new freezer, and my ice hasn't set up yet. So I apologize. But you would shake it hard in a shaker. Mm-hmm. I can't do it. I could do the conceptual shake, but it's not going to show you what you need to see. But I created it just by giving it a little stir. And I mean, this is just beautiful. And let me tell you how it tastes. It's going to be delicious, and it hits almost right away. So if I get soft or sloppy, it's not my fault. Oh, is that delicious? I was stumbling upon the Fruitations cranberry the other day. Normally I use their citrus flavors because it pulls from the citrus flavors of the cannabis. But this is just much deeper and much more pronounced. And it has a lot of mystery in it. So drinks that use bourbon or mezcal or dark spirits or whiskey, whiskey from Scotland even, or even absinthe. I could make a beautiful absinthe frappe with this. I mean, this is as serious of a cocktail as anything that you could get in any craft cocktail lounge anywhere in the world, but it just happens to be infused with enough THC to knock down just about anybody.
Why do you have to do the second step? After you've decarboxylated it, why do you have to then micro-encapsulate it?
Because even though alcohol is a really good solvent, it would take too long it would take days or weeks for it to go into solvency. I mean, so this bottle here is an experiment in process. This has Decarb, actually ABV, the already been vaped stuff that I use for my packs. And rather than throwing out wherever my packs is, rather than throwing out the stuff that accumulates in the bottom here, it still has plenty of THC available for you to use in other ways. I have friends who throw the stuff out. You should be saving every bit of it in whatever the best spirit you have. There's a ton of ABV in this bottle of rum agricole, and it's going to work. It works incredibly well, and there's a ton of THC that's there and able to be used. So you don't want to throw that stuff away. If you don't,
we also go ahead. I think we also need to point out that people need to be careful with this because they're getting two components.
Yeah, it is two components, but believe it or not, they play very nicely. Now, this is the trouble that I've run into, because they don't work against each other. In actuality, they work very, very nicely with each other. The feeling is quite extraordinary. I can't explain it other than to say that it's not what you would expect. When it's not like drinking 5 shots of tequila and smoking a joint and watching the room start to spin. It's not like that at all. Because of the alcohol, it opens up it works into your bloodstream very, very quickly. And it doesn't have to pass through your stomach, it passes through your liver. I believe they call that the entourage effect. So what's happening here is the alcohol opens up your blood vessels. And then because the cannabis is 100% bioavailable, it hits you within 2 minutes, literally. There's no waiting time. It's no more of that, where's the beef, what's going to happen to me, like a brownie. Should I take more, should I take less, did I take too much? We know what it does. We know how it works, and we know that it works well every single time. It is truly amazing. It's groundbreaking. I even infused seltzer water, if you can imagine that. You don't need to be in a high-fat situation. There were drinks that I used lecithin in. Lecithin is brain food. It's the part and parcel of our brains. It gives us, kind of supercharges the experience. I don't know how much more supercharging you need, but there are people out there who like their experience supercharged, and that's one way of doing it. But really, at the end of the day, what I figured out a way of doing was to offer medicine to people who need it. My publisher would have never published this book if we were aiming at a recreational crowd. There's enough books like that out in the marketplace. And really, at the end of the day, what I wanted to do was heal.
So you have folks out there that, for whatever reason, are not interested in rum, bourbon, gin, whatever.
Right.
What do we
I
have?
Alternatives, yes. Well, I was in High Times magazine, and I made a Bloody Mary Jane without vodka. I used a clam-based Bloody Mary mix as the base, and I infused the clam-based mix with THC. So you don't need alcohol. I also made, in my book, Cannabis Cocktails, Vietnamese iced coffees with THC-infused condensed milk. Condensed milk is one of those marvelous things. You can take condensed milk. It comes in a can. You put it in a double boiler with a portion of decarb cannabis and cook it until it turns almost to caramel, and then use it in your Vietnamese iced coffee, which is essentially chicory coffee. It is absolutely delicious. I made beautiful mixed drinks with coconut cream. Coconut cream works beautifully. I did use coconut oil in some of my processes, but coconut cream is the basis of a pina colada. So I made pina coladas without rum, with THC-infused coconut cream, and they're just delicious. You could sit out by the pool and sip them all day. I love how you sort of frame that, because I'm all about savory drinks instead of sweet drinks. There are some sweet drinks in the book, but really the focus is upon drinks that are bitter, savory, acerbic, and sour. So I have shrubs. Those are acidulated beverages meant to heal the gut. I had bitters that I used. I made some tinctures in the book. And I tried to keep away from the sweet. There's so much of an emphasis in the edible cannabis world on sweet. It's chocolate, it's candy, it's cookies. I love sweet things, but I don't eat them all the time. And when I'm making cannabis infusions, I'm hopefully doing it with materials that are not sweet, that are slightly sharp, that are sour, that cause us to salivate. That's really important to me. I create my craft cocktails in a way that calls to my culinary background. I was trained as a saucier, so I want to be able to work with flavors in a way that's that makes you hungry, it makes you thirsty, it makes you want to go forward.
And so we infuse now with a coffee to have a cold coffee brew.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely, and it works very nicely. And if you do a hot buttered rum or a hot tea, you can do it with can of butter, or you can do it with can of coconut oil. And in that case, I have the can of coconut oil. I use lecithin, so it kind of makes a sheen on top, but it is really, really lovely, and the experience is very, very deep. And you know, it's funny that I come out of this traditional liquor side where it's not about having a great experience of relaxing and being with friends. It seems to be just about getting drunk. And my drinks are not about getting drunk. They're about responsible drinking, and they're about responsible cannabis use. And as I say over and over again, if I wanted to write a recreational book for your college fraternity, you can take those recipes and put them to work for you, but that wasn't my intention whatsoever. I come from a long line of healers from folk medicine. I grew up on a biodynamic farm in New Jersey. I'm very interested in holistic healing. And my grandfather actually created a product which was snake oil. So, if he could do it and become successful, the product was called Geritol, by the way. It was a vitamin tonic. This was really no more than whiskey, ethyl alcohol, caramel coloring, and flavorings. He had everyone fooled. But they even talked about it on the Lawrence Welk show. You're probably too young for that one. But they had everyone pretty much cued in. So I want, since as we're lucky to say, I didn't inherit anything other than his brains. I wanted to take his brains and put it to use for me.
Once you've infused the alcohol with the THC, what is the lifespan of it? So do you have to drink it right away, or do you have to reinfuse it if you let it sit a few days?
I think it would be just fine. I would refrigerate it, definitely. Once you put the fruit syrup in, it has to be refrigerated. Anything with sugar or anything with vinegar should be refrigerated at least to 45 to 50 degrees. But in its aqueous state, it's fine forever. Like this it's going nowhere. It's over 100 proof. It has very low pH and high acidity. So it's going nowhere. It's like you go to a restaurant or a bar and you see those containers of fruit behind the bar. They're only using 80 proof spirits. I at least am using minimum 100 proof spirits. So there's nothing that's going to happen to it. No one's going to get sick. No one's going to get a stomach virus. It's very, very passive. It's very peaceful. It just feels good. I can't explain it any other way. I've taken a lot of things in my life, and this really feels very natural. It's an expansion of everything that I know to be true.
And so even once the bubbles have dissipated, it still is...
Yeah, they've dissipated now. I mean, they're completely dissipated, and I could put it back directly into the container here, which is probably what I should do, and it'll be fine. You can let's see, put it in. So there it goes. It's back into its original container, and I could cap it up and use it 6 months from now, and it'll be just as potent because it's being held in solution, and that solution happens to be alcoholic. And because it's been decarbed, the cannabis has been decarbed, it's going nowhere. I have when I'm making infused beverages with a 750 ml bottle, they roughly run about 2,000 mgs per bottle. It's a lot. It's a lot. The drinks turn out to be anywhere between 100. You could do them as much as 200 milligrams for a drink or 100 milligrams for a drink. I like the 100 milligram mark. I could always add more. Reminds me of the Thai food principle. When you take someone to a Thai food restaurant for the first time, you never want to give them Thai spicy. They wouldn't be happy with you. I want to start them slow and add to it. You can always add more Thai spices. You can't take them away. Same thing works with cannabis. There's nothing worse for our industry than someone having a bad experience. There was someone from the New York Times, who will go nameless, who ate the entire chocolate bar. No one eats the entire chocolate bar. That's just stupid. By the way, the Cannabis Cocktail just hit me. How long was that? 5 minutes?
It's been a little longer.
Just like that. That was really amazing. It was like full body, very peaceful. Oh, you can see the goosebumps on my arm. It's like they're all, It feels really nice, and it's very peaceful. And being that this is a sativa as opposed to an indica, I feel very sharp and focused and clear and happy. And that's all it's about. It's about peacefulness. It's not about aggression. And I find that alcohol can be very aggressive. I just spent 7 days down in New Orleans at Tales of the Cocktail, which is the big cocktail convention. And it's tough to be around people who are drinking heavily because, the aggression stuff comes out with alcohol. This has none of that aggression. It's very peaceful. It's very calm. I think back to the 1800s when cannabis was used in tinctures, and it was part of the American Medical Association pharmacopoeia. It was an approved use right up to the time of William Randolph Hearst and Mr. Anslinger, who decided that they wanted to protect the paper industry.
You said that because of the alcohol, the
Yeah.
THC is absorbed into your system at a different rate of speed.
Yeah.
Is it so? If you were to use the same method to infuse it into a fat, such as, like you said, coconut cream, and you ingested it, is it then back to its normal rate of speed?
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good question. Very much so. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to go through your system, and that's about normal. You know, alcohol is going to be almost immediate. The normal way of imbibing it would take approximately a half hour to 45 minutes to as much as an hour. So I would say 1 drink per hour, no more. And it's in my book very clearly: 1 drink per hour, no more. Here it is. Here's the book: Cannabis Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics. Hopefully it shows up correctly.
And what is your favorite recipe in the book?
I love the cocktail called the Meserole cocktail, which was named after Mez Mesereau, and I'm going to quote it exactly. Mez Mesereau was a white Jewish guy who lived in Harlem in the 20s and 30s, and he persuaded black jazz musicians like Sidney Bechet and Louis Armstrong to let him play along, and they probably would not have let him play along if it wasn't for one simple fact: he was Louis Armstrong's weed dealer. And he was for a good period of time. When Louis would come back to the New York metro area, he would get his weed from Mez. So I decided to pay homage to Mr. Mez Mesereau with a cocktail which we call the Meserole. And a Meserole would have been a slang word for a joint or a reefer. Now, if you said to someone in the street, "I'd like to buy a reefer," or "I'd like to buy a joint," and a policeman heard that, they probably would have arrested you. But if you asked for a Meserole, that meant that you wanted a particularly well-rolled cannabis cigarette. So I'm a huge fan of Manhattan-style cocktails. They make great aperitifs. Let me see if I can show this one. This one is named after Milton Mez Mesereau, a jazz musician who lived in Harlem in the 20s. And as Mez would have known, the term for a well-rolled cannabis cigarette was a Meserole. So I just had to commemorate both man and medicine in this elegant cocktail. It combines cannabis-infused sweet vermouth, handmade cocktail cherries, which are also infused with THC, and quality bourbon into a small but well-formed libation that's deeply healing. When you're infusing your vermouth, consider choosing a sativa indica hybrid strain called Cherry Pie. It's redolent of sweet and sour cherries, and it complements the toasty, oaky flavors inherent in the liquors. As far as making the crushed ice, it's best to place the ice in a Lewis bag, a heavy canvas bank bag that's made for the job, before whacking it with a wooden mallet or rolling pin.
Awesome.
So that's the Meserole.
Wonderful.
Sounds delicious.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
And one other question about recipes: what would be the easiest recipe for a beginner in your book?
I've got a delicious one. I've got a delicious one that does not involve any liquor at all. And I'm going to put it up so you can see it. You see how beautiful that is?
Yeah.
That's the Vietnamese iced coffee with THC-infused condensed milk. And I'll read that to you while I'm finding which way I can get my camera to work there. Okay. So cold Vietnamese-style coffee with its sweet, unctuous condensed milk offers nothing less than full-body gratification. Now you can make a medicated version at home. The key is the THC-infused condensed milk. For this recipe, try making it with an indica strain, like blueberry. Its fruity aromatics are a beautiful match for the chicory coffee. Darkly flavored Fire OG, also a sativa, works well here too. If you need a quick fix, skip the lengthy heating process involved in making an infused condensed milk and add no more than 10 ml of an indica tincture to regular condensed milk before using it into your cocktails. Couch lock will result, so don't be tempted to have more than one of these per hour. And be sure to stay away from cars, bicycles, or anything else with wheels. until the effects of your cafe have worn off.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That is beautiful.
I'm the luckiest man in the world. You have to know, I worked as a banker for 20 years doing what I didn't love. It was not my passion. And I had the chance to reinvent myself from failure multiple times. This is very important to me to say that I'm a 100% self-made man. I do what I love, and I care about other people. And I'm really, really excited to have this. Means everything to me.
And it shows with your passion. It's very informative. It's fun at the same time, educational. How does one find your book? How much is the book? How do people order your recipe?
I hope that my readers and your listeners and viewers go to an independent bookstore. We love independent bookstores. I'm all about independent spirits and small producer craft spirits. I think it's very important to support local business. You'll get a slightly better price by going through Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can buy an electronic book. It's on all the different channels. My publisher is top-notch, so it's every place. But I really encourage you to go to a local bookstore. They'll probably charge you about $20 for the book. If you would like a signed copy, you can get in touch with a small store that I deal with in Bernardsville, New Jersey, named The Bookworm. I trot in, I sign the book, and they'll send it any place in the world. I've had books sent to Japan, to Russia, to all over the United States, and I would, make it personalized for that individual. And then they send it. It's a beautiful thing. But Amazon has it for about $14. I think Barnes & Noble is probably about $16. It all depends on the hour of the day. So,
fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of your information with us. And I hope that we can have you on again sometime soon. You're so interesting. We want to hear about your adventures.
Do you have a product or business you want to share? We want to know what you have to say. Leave us a comment on our website at thethhcfoodie.com or on Twitter at SafeTHCFoods.